Have you ever noticed that the version of you that exists when no one is watching feels like the real you? Not the you at work, not the you at family dinners, not the you on a first date, but the you at 11 p.m. sitting alone doing exactly what you want, thinking exactly what you think without editing yourself for anyone. If that resonates, you're not antisocial. You're not broken, and you're definitely not alone in feeling this way. What you're experiencing has a scientific explanation, and once you understand it, it might change the way you see yourself, your relationships, and the exhausting performance of everyday social life. In 1959, sociologist Erving Goffman introduced a theory that would reshape how we understand human behavior. He called it dramaturgical theory, the idea that social life is essentially a performance. According to Goffman, every time you're around other people, you step onto a stage. You wear a costume, you follow a script, and you play a role that you've carefully crafted based on who you think you're supposed to be in that context. Think about it. You speak differently to your boss than you do to your best friend. You carry yourself differently at a job interview than you do at a barbecue. You even laugh differently depending on who's in the room. This isn't dishonesty. It's not manipulation. It's something your brain does automatically, because human beings are fundamentally social creatures who learned, over thousands of years of evolution, that fitting in meant survival. But here's where it gets interesting. When you're alone, truly alone, the performance stops. There's no audience. There's no role to play. And for the first time, maybe all day, your brain can finally just be. Psychologists call this the shift from your social self to your authentic self. And for many people, that shift feels like taking off a suit of armor they didn't even realize they were wearing. Neuroscience has something fascinating to say about solitude. When you're engaged in social interaction, large portions of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for social evaluation, self-monitoring, and impression management, are constantly active. You're tracking facial expressions, processing tone of voice, calculating how your words will be received, adjusting your behavior in real time based on social feedback. It's cognitively exhausting, even when the social interaction is enjoyable. But when you're alone, a different network activates, one that neuroscientists call the default mode network, or DMN. The DMN is sometimes called the brain's resting state, but it's anything but inactive. This is the network that handles self-reflection, imagination, memory consolidation, and creative thinking. In other words, when you're alone, your brain isn't doing nothing. It's doing some of its most important work. It's processing your experiences, connecting dots you didn't have time to connect during the day, asking questions like, what do I actually want? What do I really believe? Who am I when no one is defining me? This is why so many people report having their best ideas in the shower, or on a long walk alone, or right before sleep. It's not a coincidence. It's your default mode network doing exactly what it was designed to do, and it only activates fully when the social noise quiets down. There's a term in psychology called ego depletion, and it helps explain something that millions of people feel but can't quite name. The idea, developed by psychologist Roy Baumeister, is that self-control and self-regulation draw from a limited mental resource. And every time you manage your behavior, suppress an emotion, or maintain a social persona, you're spending from that resource. Every time you smile at a comment that wasn't funny, every time you hold back an opinion to keep the peace, every time you present a calmer, more competent, more agreeable version of yourself than you actually feel in that moment, you are spending cognitive and emotional energy. And by the end of a long social day, many people are genuinely depleted, not because they did anything physically strenuous, but because the performance was exhausting. This is why introverts, and many people who identify somewhere in the middle, feel so restored by time alone. It's not that they dislike people. Research by psychologist Laurie Helgo found that many introverts actually have deeply rich inner lives and can enjoy social connection, but they need solitude afterward to recharge, in the same way a phone needs to be plugged back in after heavy use. The alone time isn't escape, it's recovery. Here's a question worth sitting with. If you behave differently depending on who you're with, which version of you is the real one? Psychologists who study identity have a term for this: Self-concept clarity, the degree to which your beliefs about yourself are clear, consistent, and stable. Research shows that people with high self-concept clarity tend to have lower anxiety, better emotional regulation, and stronger mental health outcomes. They feel a consistent sense of self regardless of social context. But here's the thing, most people don't develop self-concept clarity automatically. It requires reflection. And reflection, almost by definition, requires solitude. When you're alone, you're not performing. You're not reacting to anyone else's needs or expectations. You're simply observing yourself, your thoughts, your preferences, your instincts. And over time, that self-observation is what builds a stable, coherent identity. This is actually one of the reasons adolescence is so psychologically turbulent. Teenagers are surrounded by social pressure constantly. Peers, parents, social media, with very little protected space for genuine solitude and self-reflection. The result is often a fragmented, unstable sense of self. Adults face a different version of the same problem. In a world of constant connectivity, where you can be reached at any moment, where silence feels uncomfortable, where being busy has become a status symbol, genuine solitude has become rare. And with it, the space to actually know yourself has become rare too. It's important to say clearly, needing alone time to feel like yourself does not mean you have a problem with people. There's a difference between solitude, chosen, restorative aloneness, and loneliness, which is the painful experience of feeling disconnected. Research consistently shows that solitude, when chosen freely, is associated with creativity, emotional regulation, self-awareness, and even greater empathy, because people who understand themselves tend to understand others better too. The psychologist Esther Buchholz spent decades arguing that Western culture dramatically undervalues solitude, that we've pathologized introversion, mistaken reflection for withdrawal, and built social structures that leave almost no room for the quiet inner life that human beings actually need. She wasn't suggesting people isolate themselves. She was pointing out that connection and solitude are both essential, and that a healthy life requires both in balance. The version of you that exists in solitude isn't hiding from the world. It's the version that refuels so you can actually show up in the world. More honestly, more fully, more like yourself. So the next time you find yourself looking forward to an evening alone, not out of sadness, but out of something that feels like relief, know that what you're craving is real. What you're craving is access to yourself. Your brain needs that quiet. Your identity needs that space. And the authentic version of you, the one that exists when no audience is watching, is not less social, not less likable, not less worthy of the world. It's just more you. If this video resonated with you, there's a good chance you already knew some of this on an instinctive level. Now you have the science to back it up. Share this with someone who always seems to need a little time alone. They'll probably feel very understood. And if you want to go deeper into the psychology of identity, authenticity, and why we are the way we are, subscribe. We publish new videos every week. Take care of yourself. And don't forget, solitude isn't empty. It's where you live.